Asch did the thing with the lines, right?
About a dozen years ago.
The study you are taking part in today involves the perception of the lengths of lines. As you can see, there are a number of cards, and on each card, there are several lines. Your task is a very simple one. You are to look at the line on the left and determine which of the 3 lines on the right is equal to it in length.
This is a recreation from a film I made in the 70s. 5 of the 6 participants are Confederates. The single true subject in the white t-shirt hears everyone else's answers before announcing his decision.
2. 2. 2. 2. 2.
Very good. Let's move on to the next card. Same thing, gentlemen.
3. 3. 3. 3. 3.
After the first few rounds, members of the group choose the wrong line.
2. 2.
The subject denies the evidence of his own eyes and yields to group influence.
2.
Very good. Thank you.
In the language of social science, the experiment was known as the effect of group pressure upon the modification and distortion of judgments.
Great title.
On the other hand, this cosmological constant is tuned to 1 part and 10 to the 120, 120 decimal places. Nobody thinks that's accidental.
Drop the big one.
It began here at the Kennedy Space Center, Florida, last summer. A pair of spacecraft, Viking 1 and Viking 2, were readied for their separate journeys to Mars. Each is really 2 spacecraft in one. A 5,000-pound orbiter with cameras and communications gear, and sealed inside 2 saucer-like capsules at the other end, the Viking landing craft, a camera-equipped automated biological and chemistry laboratory and seismic station, which has been purged of earthly organisms by being heated in a huge oven. The 11-month, 420-million-mile trip for the 2 Viking orbiter landers was set in motion by 2 launches. One in August, one in September. Earth shrinks smaller and smaller as the 2 Vikings head toward their Martian rendezvous. Then, braking rockets fire on command, slowing the first Viking explorer enough that it goes into orbit around Mars. For the next 2 weeks, the orbiting spacecraft will survey the surface below, transmitting pictures of possible landing sites to scientists on Earth. The Martian surface should be a study in contrasts. From vast, dust-swept plains to immense canyons and frost-covered plateaus, huge gullies and channels photographed by earlier Mariner spacecraft are believed to have been caused by running water sometime in the distant past. If all goes as planned, the first Viking lander will separate from the orbiting command ship and descend to the Martian surface, landing at 9:40 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, July 4th. The second Viking is scheduled to land on September 4th, 1,000 miles to the northeast of Viking 1. How will Viking go about looking for life on Mars? We asked Dr. Richard Young, NASA's chief of planetary biology.
We look for life on Mars in much the same way we would look for life on Earth if we were forced to use an automated device. We don't send a scientist along. If we were sending a little wagon out into the Sahara Desert or one of the dry valleys of the Antarctic, which had to function all by itself with automated equipment, this is probably exactly what we would send. And let me say, by the way, that we're looking primarily for microorganisms. It would be rather fruitless of us to look for horses on Mars. We wouldn't look for horses on Earth if we were looking for life, because the chances would be 1,000,000 to 1 against finding them with a random search.
Viking's mechanical arm pulls in a scoopful of Martian soil and drops it into a 1 cubic foot box that's really 3 completely automated testing laboratories. It is here that the possibilities for or against the presence of life will be determined. What will it mean to Earthlings if life is found on Mars?
It must mean that the universe is literally an inhabited universe with many planets that have life on it. Now, if there are many planets that have life on it, there is no doubt at all that terrestrial life is not going to be the most advanced civilization, the most highest level of consciousness. We must be somewheres in the broad spectrum of possibility. And that drives you to the conclusion that there may be conscious life elsewhere in the universe.
Vikings to Mars and the search for life there. This country's first close-up scientific exploration of the red planet.
For the small world problem, we asked people in Kansas and Omaha to mail a packet to a person in Sharon, Massachusetts. The instructions are simple. There's a target person, in this case, a stockbroker named Jacobs in Sharon, Mass. Assuming they don't know this person, people are asked to mail the folder to someone who might know him. They can send it to a friend, relative, or acquaintance, but they have to send it, and this is key, to a person they know on a first-name basis. There's a roster to fill out and a batch of postcards to mail back to Harvard to track the process. Will it work? We don't know. A woman in Omaha sends the folder to a high school friend, a bank clerk in Council Bluffs, Iowa. She sends it to a man in Belmont, Massachusetts, a publisher, who sends it to a tanner in Sharon. The tanner sends it to his brother-in-law, a sheet metal worker, also in Sharon, who sends it to a dentist, who sends it to a printer, who sends it to Mr. Jacobs. 7 links in a chain. The average chain, in fact, involves 5.5 links. That is, we determine that less than 6 degrees of separation exist between you and several million strangers who you may or may not encounter in your lifetime. When we understand the structure of this communication net, we stand to grasp a good deal more about the fabric of society. Maybe it's not necessarily justified, this common human complaint, the feeling that we're all cut off, alienated, and alone. Maybe it's not necessarily justified, this common human complaint, the feeling that we're all cut off, alienated, and alone. Around this time, I was also working on The Familiar Stranger. We take photographs of commuters on a train platform.
Each figure in the photographs are given a number. The photographs are duplicated, and a week later, the students follow up.
Hello, I'm a student at CUNY. Would you mind filling out this questionnaire?
Oh, okay.
Also, do you recognize any of these people?
No.
What about here?
Well, that's me.
Yes, can you identify anyone else?
Not by name.
Most commuters recognize on average 4 individuals that they see in their daily routine but never speak to, familiar strangers. Amongst these are sociometric stars, figures that they not only recognize, but even fantasize about. They wonder what kind of lives these strangers lead, what their jobs are like, and if they ran into each other in another place, or if some emergency jolted them out of this routine, they might start to speak, to actually know one another.
1984. 1984 was a big year for me. My lecture fees peaked. I was asked to speak all over the world about the obedience experiments, of course, in relation to Orwell's prophetic book, a book that describes a totalitarian world where people aren't very good at thinking for themselves.
He's interested in the unacknowledged power of photographic images.
Good. Life can only be understood backwards, but has to be lived forward.